mom put her girls to bed. The next morning, one girl was missing. The mom was scared. She knew her daughter didn't leave the house by herself. The police came to help. They looked everywhere but couldn't find the girl. They found some strange things, but they couldn't figure out what happened. It took a long time, but the police finally learned the truth, and it was truly shocking. Kirsten Hatfield was born on February 12, 1989, in Midwest City, Oklahoma. Her dad left when she was a baby, so her mom moved in with her grandparents. They helped raise Kirsten. When Kirsten was 2, they moved to their own house. Her mom got married again and had another baby named Faith. That marriage didn't work out either, so her mom raised the girls alone. Kirsten helped take care of Faith. They were close and shared a room. Their mom slept next door. One night, when Kirsten was 8 and Faith was 3, their mom put them to bed. Usually, she read them a story, but Faith was already asleep. She kissed Kirsten goodnight and went to her room. She left the girl's door open a little, like she always did. Around 3 a.m., she heard a noise. She thought the girls woke up, so she went to their room. The noise stopped when she got close to the door. She thought they fell back asleep, so she was going to leave. But then she noticed something strange. The door was closed, but she always left it open. She opened it a little, but didn't go in. Then she went back to bed. The next morning, around 6:30 a.m., Shannon went to wake the girls. She entered their bedroom and saw that only her younger daughter, Faith, was in bed. She woke Faith and asked where Kirsten was, but Faith didn't know. Shannon immediately began searching the entire house, but Kirsten was nowhere to be found. She looked outside and called all her friends whose children Kirsten knew, hoping she had gone to one of them. None of them had seen her. Desperate, Shannon called her father, who lived nearby, hoping Kirsten had gone to him, but he hadn't seen her either. Realizing Kirsten had disappeared, he told Shannon to call the police and went to their house. Shannon called 911, and officers arrived within minutes. At first, they thought Kirsten might be hiding somewhere in the house or had gone for a walk. Their town had never experienced a child being abducted from their own bedroom, so the local police had never dealt with anything like this before. However, the officers soon realized the situation was more serious. In Kirsten's room, they found the window slightly open with a few drops of blood on the frame. Outside, they discovered a piece of children's underwear stained with blood a few yards away. Shannon confirmed it belonged to Kirsten. The police realized they were likely dealing with a kidnapping and immediately called for more officers to assist. When they searched the area around the house, police questioned Kirsten's mother. She recounted waking up at 3 a.m. after hearing a noise, realizing that an unknown criminal was likely abducting Kirsten at that moment. The search around the house yielded no results, so the police started interviewing all the residents in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, none of them saw or heard anything suspicious that night. The only lead was from a neighbor who was awakened by a dog barking around 3 a.m., which coincided with the time of the abduction. Failing to find any solid leads, investigators turned to a child psychologist to speak with Faith. Despite being only 3 years old, she shared that she had witnessed the abduction, but kept repeating only one phrase: "A bad person came and took my sister." This confirmed that Kirsten did not leave the house willingly, but provided no further clues to identify the perpetrator or locate Kirsten. Detectives had to restart the investigation from scratch. Their initial suspicion leaned towards someone who knew Kirsten well, as it seemed unlikely that a stranger could abduct her from her room without making a sound. Working on this theory, police discovered that Kirsten's mother had a history of drug-related problems. They considered the possibility that the abduction might be related to this, perhaps as a form of payment for a debt. The alternative was even more chilling. The police did not rule out the possibility that the mother willingly handed over her daughter, which would explain why the abduction happened almost silently. They spoke with Shannon, but she denied any involvement. She claimed she had been clean from illegal substances for a long time and insisted she would never give away her daughter. The detectives didn't rush to clear her of suspicion, but they couldn't find any evidence against her. So, They reached out to the public for help through the media, asking anyone with information to come forward. Over the next few days, the police received hundreds of calls. Detectives followed up on each lead, though most were superficial and lacked valuable information. Then, they received a disturbing tip. A woman suspected her boyfriend might be involved in the kidnapping. He had been acting aggressively and even told her during an argument that if she didn't obey him, he would do to her what he did to Kirsten Hatfield. Investigating this man, the police discovered he knew Shannon's brother, meaning Kirsten might have known him too. The girls and their mother lived in a house that had previously belonged to Shannon's brother, so the suspect might have been familiar with the layout. The man also had a history of drug involvement and assault. Everything pointed to him as a potential suspect. However, the man claimed he was at a bar that night, and police confirmed his alibi through witnesses, placing him at the bar until around 4 a.m. This eliminated him as a suspect. The investigators pursued hundreds of other leads, but they all led to dead ends. As months passed, the hope of finding Kirsten alive dwindled. Shannon couldn't just wait and do nothing while the police struggled. From the beginning, she did everything she could to find her daughter. She gave interviews to local media, distributed flyers, and even investigated various suspects herself. She faced many challenges, like when she asked local businesses to display flyers about Kirsten. Many refused, citing company policies. She also tried to meet with the state governor, but was unsuccessful. Shannon set up a small center to attract volunteers for Kirsten's case. They focused on distributing flyers and engaging with the media. However, Shannon faced new problems. Some volunteers stole money, others lied about their work, and some used the media attention for personal gain. Despite all this, Shannon never gave up on finding the truth. After years of fruitless efforts, she decided to take a new approach. She went back to college, earned a degree in criminology, and became a parole officer. Shannon chose this path not just to find her daughter's kidnapper, but also to protect others from dangerous criminals who might be released from prison. She believed the person who took Kirsten had a criminal past and studied individuals with violent histories in her town and nearby areas, hoping to find a connection to her daughter's abduction. Unfortunately, all her efforts led to dead ends. Shannon eventually accepted that Kirsten was likely no longer alive, but she never completely gave up her quest for answers. The police occasionally reopened the case, following new leads, but with no results. They even worked with the FBI to create an age-progressed sketch of Kirsten. Though no one believed she was still alive without her remains, they couldn't say for sure. The case remained stagnant for many years until an unexpected turn in 2014. A woman contacted the police with a strange story. While sorting through her recently deceased grandmother's belongings, she found a diary. In it, the grandmother wrote that her own son had confessed to killing Kirsten Hatfield. The diary was full of detailed descriptions, leaving detectives with no doubt about its authenticity. According to the diary, the man abducted Kirsten from her bedroom, took her to a nearby town where he owned a house, subjected her to heinous acts, and then brutally murdered her. The gruesome details spanned several pages and horrified even seasoned investigators. The diary also mentioned that the entire ordeal was recorded on video cassette. Detectives immediately brought the woman's son in for questioning. While they expected him to deny everything, his response was surprising. He claimed he wasn't involved, but knew who did it because the girl was killed in his ex-girlfriend's house. This baffled the police, so they asked for the address. Detectives quickly obtained a warrant and sent a team to investigate the property. They sprayed luminol, a substance that glows upon contact with blood, even if it's been cleaned. The results were shocking. One forensic expert said the entire house lit up like a Christmas tree. The bloodstains matched the gruesome details in the diary. Experts removed floorboards, cut out sections of wallpaper, and sent everything to the lab. They also began excavations on the property, hoping to find Kirsten's body. Additionally, they found a box containing hundreds of video cassettes. Remembering the diary, they knew one of these tapes should contain footage of the crime. detectives painstakingly reviewed each tape, a process that took countless hours but found nothing related to the murder. The excavations also yielded no results. There were no remains or evidence in the soil on the property. But then, the police got a big surprise. The blood they found wasn't human, it was from an animal. They were really upset because they thought they were close to solving the case. They didn't know why someone would do this. Maybe someone was playing a mean joke on them, or maybe someone who was sick in the head saw the news and made up a story. The detectives still hoped to find the truth, but nothing new happened. The case got stuck again. In the summer of 2015, Kirsten's case was assigned to a new detective named Daryl Miller, who decided to start a fresh investigation. As he reviewed all the existing documents and records, Miller noticed something odd. To his surprise, he realized that over the years, his predecessors had not examined two crucial pieces of evidence: the blood on the windowsill in Kirsten's room and on her underwear. Although these pieces of evidence were stored in the warehouse, they hadn't been sent to the lab for analysis. Perhaps the police back then thought the blood belonged to Kirsten, and that analyzing it wouldn't yield any new information. Miller decided to change that and sent the evidence to the lab. Soon, the lab called him back, stating that both blood samples belonged not to Kirsten, but to an unknown male. This was a long-awaited break, but Miller faced a new challenge. The abductor's DNA sample was immediately uploaded to the FBI database, but there was no match. This could mean that he hadn't committed serious crimes, or that it happened before the database's creation. Nevertheless, Miller was undeterred. He decided to collect DNA samples from all the men involved in the case since the abduction. The police compiled a list, located each person, and sent their DNA to the lab. Surprisingly, every individual willingly provided their samples right away. This led investigators to consider that the murderer might not have been part of the case files. Despite this, Miller patiently awaited the results until he finally got a call from the lab. The experts had completed the analysis of one of the samples and found that it perfectly matched the blood found on the victim's windowsill and underwear. The individual was 56-year-old Anthony Palma, a neighbor of the Hatfield family who lived just across the street from them. Palma was one of the first people the police spoke to on the day of the abduction. Back then, he told them he woke up around 3 a.m. because his dog was barking. Now, with confirmation of his involvement, detectives decided to speak with him again. While DNA evidence was more than sufficient for a conviction in court, investigators hoped to extract a confession. Firstly, it would significantly expedite the trial, and secondly, only he knew where Kirsten's body was, making it nearly impossible to locate her remains without his cooperation. Detectives chose to proceed cautiously. They invited Anthony for questioning, stating it was a routine process. Supposedly, they were re-interviewing everyone, including neighbors, hoping to gather some new information. In reality, they had a specific task: to get him to admit whether he had ever been inside the Hatfield family home. Initially, detectives asked if he remembered anything else from that night. Anthony recounted the same story as 18 years ago. This time, however, Anthony added a new detail. He claimed he saw a white car parked in front of Kirsten's house, but didn't think much of it at the time. The police then asked him about his familiarity with the girl and her family. Anthony said he knew them as neighbors, but had never interacted with Kirsten personally. He mentioned that he got along well with other neighborhood kids, who sometimes asked him to fix their bikes or stop by for candy. When the police asked if he had ever been inside Kirsten's house, perhaps because the girl's mother had asked for his help or he had visited just to chat, Anthony said he had never been inside while the family lived there. For the detectives, this was a critical moment in the interrogation. Given that Anthony's blood was found on the windowsill of the victim's room, they had caught him in a lie. This meant that in court, he wouldn't be able to claim that the blood came from a different visit, like one on another day. There was, however, an issue. The house where Kirsten lived had previously belonged to Anthony's friend, and he admitted to visiting it during those years. but the blood on the windowsill was clearly fresh and couldn't have been left there many years ago. Despite this, detectives decided to proceed with the main part of their interrogation. They informed Anthony that his blood had been found in Kirsten's room and on her underwear. Anthony continued to deny any involvement, insisting he had never been inside Kirsten's home. Despite the investigators' attempts to extract a confession, he remained firm in his denial. They decided to change tactics and left the room. Detective Miller then entered with a photo of Kirsten, placing it on the table in front of Anthony. Anthony immediately pushed the photo away and refused to look at it for the rest of the conversation. Miller asked him various questions, hoping Anthony would slip up, but he stuck to his story. Realizing they couldn't get a confession, the police ended the interrogation and arrested Anthony. They obtained a search warrant for his house and thoroughly searched the area, but found no trace of Kirsten's remains or other evidence. During the trial, Anthony continued to deny his guilt, but the DNA evidence was clear. The court also uncovered overlooked details from Anthony's past. Years before Kirsten's abduction, he had broken into another girl's bedroom and assaulted her. He had also been imprisoned in the 1980s for a weapons-related attack. These prior offenses highlighted his dangerous nature, but his past was missed in the initial investigation. In late 2017, the jury found Anthony guilty of Kirsten's abduction and murder, sentencing him to life in prison. Despite his conviction, Anthony never revealed where he had hidden her body. The police feared they might never find it, given Anthony's familiarity with remote areas from his job with park services. Kirsten's mother continued to visit him in prison, hoping for answers. Each visit left her feeling closer to discovering the truth, but it never came. In early 2019, Anthony was killed by his cellmate, who harbored personal hatred toward him for his crime. With Anthony's death, the family's hope of finding Kirsten's remains now rests on the chance that hunters or travelers might come across them in remote national parks. All right, guys, please share your thoughts on this story in the comments section, and don't forget to hit the like button. If you enjoyed this video, thanks for watching.